All right, everyone. Welcome back to the Small World podcast. It's been a bit of a hiatus over the holidays and everything, and then I had some personal matters. So sorry for the delay for the last couple of weeks. But I'm happy to be back with my guest, Bruno, today. He is the founder of YC company Astor, which, if you think about it, makes like way too much sense and should have happened like a long time ago. So we're going to talk about that, but I'm going to start the introduction by saying we've all invested in something, right? And if you haven't, stop listening to the podcast and go at least put it in the freaking S&P or something. But, there's a reason people say like there's kind of it's a losing battle in the stock market, right? You got the huge conglomerates, the Blackstones, the BlackRocks of the world, who are just going to kick your ass every fucking time. They just have way more capital to deploy and way more brains. And then there's con firms like Jane Street as well. You gotta level the playing field a little bit, or else you're just gonna lose. You don't have enough information. You don't have enough expertise and skills to actually make it. So you either pretty much put it in the S&P and kind of pray it goes up, or you just kind of guess and check, right? So with that being said, I want to talk to Bruno, who is the founder of Astor, a company that kind of helps level the playing field a little bit. So Bruno, please tell me a little bit about your startup.
Awesome. Well, thanks for having me, Nikita. Pleasure to be here. My co-founder and I, Daniel, decided to build Astor last year. So almost exactly a year ago, we were just reflecting on how a lot of our personal finance decisions are made completely by intuition. Okay? Dan and I are big retail investors. We love putting money in the stock market, but we realized how, every time we wanted to actively trade or we thought we had found like an incredible stock, we would make emotional mistakes, right? We would maybe sell too soon or take too long to sell or get in and out of positions too quickly. And I think the thing we started to realize is like a lot of people were going to LLMs, to ChatGPT, for instance, to ask for advice, investment advice, but those platforms were not made for this. So, they don't have context of your financial information. They don't have context about your investments. So we decided to just build a product that we ourselves would love to see in the world, which was essentially a co-pilot for you to invest better, right? There's a lot of literature out there of how to become a better investor, how to make wise financial decisions. And we thought if we created an LLM based product to help people with those decisions, we will already be creating value in the world, right? Um, so we decided to ship a first version of the product, and we grabbed a bunch of our friends to beta test in the beginning of last year. And then, once we saw an initial excitement from these people, we decided to apply to YC, and then we did YC Summer 25 last year, which was an incredible experience and helped shape, the current vision for our product, which is to be an AI investment advisor built for the average investor in the US who is usually unassisted, invests by themselves, and makes all sort of emotional mistakes.
So I want to dig into a little bit more of these emotional mistakes, right? So for someone who maybe is pretty new to the game, they might not even be realizing how much emotions play a factor in when they buy, when they sell, when they hold on, right? You want to have this like, stopgap, right, of like 10% perhaps. Sometimes you just got to hold on. When you talk about emotional like maturity in trading, how does Astor help with that?
Yeah. I think one phrase that we really like here internally at the company is that investing has been solved, but human psychology has not. So essentially, I think usually when people think about investing, they put themselves in a position where they make mistakes, right? So usually they're driven by either greed or fear. So greed, it's like they go to Twitter and then they see all these crypto bros making a lot of money with some shit coin and they think they should go down that path, right? Or by fear, maybe they, are seeing headlines about the AI circularity and how companies are just like exchanging revenue and investments with each other. And they think the AI bubble is going to burst at some point and they decide to liquidate all their positions based out of emotions, right? And the thing is, like, if you go to research, it's quite proven that actually one of the best moves that you can do is just stay in the market, stay in the stock market, usually buy some ETFs and hold them for a very long period instead of like trade in and out of positions, right? And this is very simple advice, but it's quite interesting how the great majority of people our age and our generation don't follow that advice, right? Because they are driven by this greed or the fear and they want to like actively trade. So we decided to build Astor. Initially, we were more focused on doing investment research. So we wanted to have, as you mentioned, level the playing field a little bit, give retail investors access to tools that institutional investors have. But then we realized, wait, I think the bigger mission that we could have as a company is to educate people about how they should think about their finances, right? So now we evolved to become like an AI investment advisor. And essentially, what we want to do is provide the same level of service that a human investment advisor would do, but completely agentic, right? So hopefully, we can create something that is faster, cheaper, and better than a human advisor. And for a lot of people, that's going to look like a little bit different, right? So for some people, the advice will be simply, um, you're overinvested in tech stocks. Maybe you should diversify a little bit. Or for some people, it will be you're holding too much cash. Maybe you should allocate some of that money, right? And I think the beauty of building a product with LLMs is that we can personalize each experience infinitely, and customers can have access to that sort of intelligence anywhere and anytime they want. They don't have to schedule a call with an advisor and wait for them to be available, right? So when we say like we want to try to end emotional investing, is simply understanding what our customers are doing and giving them advice that's tailored to their information, their financial picture.
And you know, that makes kind of perfect sense with where reality is going in a lot of ways, right? You kind of see how as AI continues to grow, all of these kind of services become less and less or perhaps more and more of a commodity, right? I can ask ChatGPT, hey, what's going on here? I don't need to give 1 or 2% to my wealth management advisor, right? So I also kind of want to touch on two different things you said just now. First of all, the fact that like there's a lot of fear making people make a lot of quick decisions. It's proven scientifically. You just got to hold a little longer. I wonder if there's an aspect of attention span nowadays, right? At the end of the day, people in my generation are scrolling a lot. We want now, right? We don't want to wait until next year, 2 years from now. So I'm curious, do you guys have anything that kind of takes into account the age of your user? Maybe someone who's 65 is willing to hold and is more patient than someone who's like me, 22, and wants to become rich yesterday.
Yeah. For sure. Our generation is addicted to dopamine, and all the apps that we use on a daily basis were designed for that. So, I'm a Robinhood user, and when you log into the app, you see green neon or red neon colors,
Crazy,
charts
yeah.
and numbers, they really make you feel like you're at a casino and you're seeing numbers and you're seeing like things go up and down. And that essentially Robinhood makes more money if you trade more, right? So that's their incentive. And that's how they generate engagement inside their app. And because of that, I think, we have created a generation of people who their first step into their financial journey is being bombarded with all these dopamine inducing colors and flashes right from these apps. And the same thing is happening with prediction markets as well. Like, they're taking off, or crypto, right? So finance is becoming this very weird thing where it's very closely related to entertainment nowadays. And for a lot of people, that shouldn't be the case, right? Finance, in a way, has to be a little bit more boring, if that makes sense. Just investing in something that you think is worth your time and energy, putting money there, buying and holding, and that's it. So in a way, I think we're designing the upcoming mobile app that we're developing for Astor, trying to strike that balance. I think we have to have some sort of language and colors and brand identity that resonates with young investors, because otherwise they would think we're a boomer investment app, and they won't be compelled to use. But at the same time, if we're on the mission of educating people towards making better financial decisions, we don't want to make money when a customer trades more. We want to make money if we help them make better decisions. They save for the long run, they earn more money steadily, and they trust us, right? I think trust is a very big factor for us. So we gain the trust by proving results. So I think you mentioned a very good point, which is there's this disconnect, I think, in the apps made for our generation behaving a certain way, but they don't necessarily encourage the right mindset or way of thinking, right? And striking that balance is the main challenge that we have right now.
How are you not biased? Like, when you're feeding your LLM, you kind of have a lot of information coming in, I'm sure. from a bunch of different sources, how do you make sure that it's not leaning towards like, Jim Cramer's bullshit or something?
Yeah, that's our secret sauce. We're developing in-house a lot of systems that will make our LLM responses feel like a true human advisor, and a lot of that is based by science. So, we're actually we're going to be regulated by the SEC. We're in the process of getting a registration, and we're basically getting all the literature around how to be an investment advisor, the Series 65 exam, and all that, and developing this corpus of knowledge that we're feeding into our systems, and creating evaluation systems and making sure that the advice we provide is actually based on science and not necessarily just an amalgam of Reddit posts that random people on the internet have written, right? So it's part of the one of the biggest engineering initiatives that we have is making sure that that's the case, that we have this voice that really truly feels like an advisor.
So, breaking news here on the Small World podcast: Astor does not base all of their financial advice off R dash Wall Street bets.
Exactly.
So, I don't know if you know about this concept about rubber duckies in
Yes.
coding. I feel like I'm catching a bit of the same vibe here as well, where a lot of people, when they're investing, don't really have someone to kind of bounce ideas off of. It seems like it's very lonesome a lot of times. I feel like just the fact that there is someone who you can just bounce things off of or just be like kind of a fact check, a sanity check almost. When you're lost in all of it, I mean, like I remember when I was trying to do day trading, I just got lost. Too much information coming at me.
Yeah.
I feel like this is kind of like the rubber ducky equivalent, which for people who don't know is when you're coding and you kind of can't get stuck, you're stuck on something, you don't know why it works or doesn't work. You kind of explain it to a rubber ducky, and just the fact that you explain it and talk it out kind of like pushes you forward. But I feel like this is very similar in some ways.
I think that's a great analogy. Yeah. And this is a kind of behavior that I think LLMs are going to extract from people more and more because, we're used to asking ChatGPT some general questions about our lives, right? But there's like a lot of vertical consumer apps that are emerging that will become your rubber ducky for very specific things in your life, right? So in health, for instance, there's Function Health, who is wants to act as like your doctor, right? You go take exams at a lab, and then you have an LLM powered product that looks at your health data, and you as a customer can just ask Function questions that you would ask your doctor, right? So before you, maybe start a new diet, you're gonna ask Function if that makes sense according to your biomarkers, right? That's one thing. Maybe in dating, for instance, there's a few apps coming up of like matchmaking services, right? And maybe essentially in the future you can have a dating coach for you, and maybe that will look a little like ChatGPT, or maybe that will be more specific and built only for the dating world with all the specific workflows that entails. And for us, I think the way we see ourselves is we're gonna be that player in finance. So whenever you have a question about your financial life, like should I put this bonus that I just got into my 401k or in my taxable brokerage account? Should I start stock picking? Should I just do passive investing? All these questions that we have, we want us to be the very first place you're gonna ask that and have like the rubber ducky effect, right? A lot of people do that nowadays with their friends. They have group chats in which they ask each other for investment advice, and that is usually not the best way to make smart financial decisions. And I think LLMs are, infinitely more powerful in terms of knowledge that they have than a regular, investor who just got into trading. So it just makes perfect sense that in the future, people are going to go to these vertical LLMs to ask for guidance. And we want to try to occupy that space before anyone else does.
That makes perfect sense. I do want to turn to a slightly different aspect of Astor as well. And this is leading to like the big question that I really want to talk about because it's taking over kind of the world. But you guys kind of have like a hype tracker. I was looking at your website. If something trends, if someone makes a tweet like Donald Trump or Elon Musk, right? You guys have notifications for that, right?
We have systems of that notify users for social sentiment. So, we track Reddit, X, especially for these signals. And, if you are following like a specific stock, like Intel, for instance. They've been making like moves and all over the headlines in the past few weeks. If you go to Intel's page on our upcoming app, you're going to be able to see what people are talking about, right? And you can set up all these notifications to be informed about what really matters to your portfolio. So this is one part of our agentic system that we're building to make sure that whatever users want to know and whatever investment style they have will be able to become like a one-stop shop for them.
Makes sense. And okay, the big question here: Polymarket, Kalshi, prediction markets. Holy shit. Okay, first of all, that shit exploded. I'll share a fun fact to you, Bruno, and our audience. Did you know that Gen Z has more money in freaking prediction markets than they do the stock market?
That's a crazy stat.
That's crazy. But I want to ask
Crazy
you
stat.
about, please go for it.
No, yeah, I agree. It is a crazy stat, and this in part is why we're very motivated to work every day in what we do. I don't think that's healthy. I think prediction markets, a lot of VCs they say, oh, we invested in Kalshi or Polymarket because we want to make markets more efficient and we want to build systems that allow people to predict the future in a much more efficient way, right? But in the end, Kalshi makes 90% of their revenue through sports betting, and that is not how a human financial advisor would advise you to put your money on in your finances.
Yeah. So you're saying the over on Drake May touchdowns I got for this weekend isn't how I should be spending my money?
You can have some of your entertainment money, like the gambling money. So I think it's important for us to entertain ourselves and put some money where our mouth is sometimes, but that should definitely, um, you know, I'll refrain from giving investment advice here, but I don't think advisors would agree that that is the core strategy you should have in your portfolio.
Yeah, no, I agree there. I actually don't sports gamble. That's one thing that I just don't allow myself to do. I hate gambling in general. I think it's more stressful than fun. Poker is another story. It's a skill game. So
Yeah.
we'll go there. I do want to talk a little bit more about the poly market and the couches of the world. Why do you think they've blown up so much? Like, what do you think it is about them versus like usual trading that really makes it exciting to my generation?
I think it's a new concept, and new concepts are just always fun because they're novel, right? So I think Kaushi did an incredible job in the past few years of just being very close to the regulators and making sure that prediction markets could actually happen in the US. And it is an interesting concept. Even like mathematically, it's quite interesting to see how a lot of these prediction markets actually are closer to the actual outcome than polling, right? Just asking people in the streets what they think is going to happen with the New York election, for instance, right? Because these markets they encourage people to put their money where their mouth is, and that actually is a better indication of their true thoughts than just answering a question to a random people doing polls in the streets, right? So I think it is actually like an interesting experiment in markets, and it also provides entertainment value for people, right? Everyone, I think, trying to predict the future has existed, for since the very early ages, and every civilization that has emerged on earth has had some sort of endeavor trying to predict the future. So it's inherently human for us to be attracted to this idea, and prediction markets allow people to try to do that, right? So I do think it's an interesting concept, and it's a great social experiment as well. It should, and as I mentioned, could be part of your, entertainment money. I have a little bit of money in there because I think it's fun, and I think it teaches me something about human behavior. But I think for all the rest of the world of finance, there's a whole world to be explored, and we want Astor to be your primary platform to guide you through it.
So Astor's not going to be touching the prediction markets anytime soon.
We might in the future, but that's not our focus right now.
Gotcha. I think it'll be interesting to see where it goes. And I also wonder with regulation, like you mentioned, how is it that you can just say like, oh, we're like Kalshi coin or whatever it is, right? And so it's not real money, so you can trade in all 50 states and like whatever, you can be whatever age you want. Like they bypass a lot of regulation like that. Do you think that's going to last, or do you think that's going to be nipped in the bud at some point?
Yeah. I think they were, at least with the current administration and the regulators, they have a positive view on innovations that are happening in prediction markets. So I
Yeah.
think Kashi Polymarket, they might be protected in the short term. In the long run, we'll see. I think no one knows the answer, but kudos to them for being the first ones and opening up this new category of investing.
From a human perspective, I hate it because I think it probably causes more harm than good. From an innovation and entrepreneurship perspective, I freaking love it. I think it's
Yeah,
so
I
creative.
agree.
We'll see where it goes. And honestly, I think since we don't live in a perfect world where our lawmakers make decisions based off of the greater good, I think
Yeah.
Kalshi and Polymarket and everyone else will probably be sliding a couple doors, a couple of bucks through the back door to keep the regulation going. So
Yeah.
we'll see. We'll see. Okay. I do want to talk a little bit about your most recent LinkedIn post as well. So you might not know this, but here on the Small World podcast, team of two, um, we like to do a little bit of stalking of our guests. So you made a recent post, and I'm just gonna synthesize it real quick, where essentially you said, "Okay, we got a bunch of back end people, and we pretty much made them do front end stuff. Go find something on our front end that you don't like, and figure out how to make it better through vibe coding." I thought that was really interesting because I think it speaks to the bigger trend of the fact that front end, back end, it's going to turn into one almost at some point, right? Because as vibe coding comes along, you're going to have less of a gap there. So I was curious on your take as to when you're building Astor, right? And you're telling your SWEs and engineers how to go about things. Do you set like specific things for each engineer, or do you just kind of tell them like, hey, like own this space entirely and build the whole stack?
Yeah, I think so. All of our engineers are full stack here, and they do a little bit of everything, and that's kind of the reality of an early stage startup. But I think the essence of that post was that we encourage everyone in the company to do things that they're maybe not used to doing, or they think they don't have a lot of experience. And with vibe coding, it is now possible to turn ideas into reality. And of course, there's a lot of steps after they have vibe coded something and open a PR to like review and make sure the code is of good quality. But I think the simple act of, putting your creativity to work and see that reflected into, an actual product feature is something very magical, right? And we wanted everyone in the company for that day to experience that. And I think we left, at the end of the design hackathon that we called it, I think everyone left feeling very empowered. I think everyone saw the potential of vibe coding, especially for some design tweaks that maybe would take like a few days if we asked the designer to produce. Now we could just like prompt Claude Code to come up with a good solution. And, if you take 4.5 Sonnet or Opus, like they're pretty good models in front end, much better than the previous iterations. I think they did a good job. They did a good enough job for one day. And then I think in the long run, like 6 months from now, maybe they'll be able to do entire workflows for, full features for us. So right now our engineers are, mostly reviewing code, and most of the code is AI generated. And that is working well for us. And startups are all about speed. So that can become a long-term advantage if we're able to produce code, keep, a level of rigor in reviewing that code, and we can work in multiple streams at the same time with our agents. I think that can be a competitive advantage against incumbents.
I just want to point out one funny thing you said, which was in the long term, 6 months from now. That's how
Yes.
AI moves, though. That is exciting. I do want to follow up off what you just said. Where do you see yourself and the company in like 5 to 10 years? So what's the long term goal here?
Our big mission is to democratize access to investment and financial advice. So what happens nowadays is, quick story. So I'm from Brazil, and in Brazil, labor is relatively cheap. There's a lot of financial advisors in the industry. So when you open a brokerage account, essentially you get a free advisor with that account, and it's not a great experience. They are usually paid by commissions when they recommend certain financial products. So their incentive is to actually make more money and not to provide the best investment advice to the customer, right? And then, I was not happy with the model. And then I came to the US, and then I realized, wow, actually, people don't even use advisors as much here because in the US labor is more expensive. So the big brokerage firms or the big banks, they don't have a lot of advisors just like, hanging around for them to offer to a newly created account with not a lot of dollars in their account, right? So it's a kind of service that is a little bit more exclusive to people who have more money, right? Because in the economics of the industry only work if you're serving customers with higher AUM, higher net worth, and they charge like a percentage of their net worth, right? And then I was like, wow, there's a whole generation, like people between 20, 30 years old who are probably having to make big financial decisions. Maybe they're going to get married. Maybe they want to start, thinking about buying a house, or they just got their first bonus and they really don't know what to do, right? So I think my ambition for the next 5 to 10 years is for everyone who wants to have investment or financial advice in a way that is better, faster, and cheaper than human advisors will be able to have that with our product. We want to be the first thing that people think about when they think about making smarter financial decisions. And hopefully, if we get there, I think we have built something of incredible value.
Do you see yourself going international at some point?
I think it's part of our plan, yeah. And our DNA is global. So my co-founder Daniel and I were both from Brazil, and we came to the US to try to build a platform here because the US is the largest retail investing market in the world. So it made a lot of business sense. But I think our ambition is to democratize even more access to financial intelligence, because taking care of your finances is not only a US thing, right? It's a global thing. Money exists all around the world, and people have money and they have been making bad financial decisions for all of history. So if we're able to help people outside of this country, that would be incredible for us as well.
I wonder, that'll be a whole challenge in itself too, just thinking about culture plays a effect here, right? This isn't even a question. This is just me like kind of thinking like, how do you balance the fact that in some other countries you're expected to get married by 20 years old and you're living off $500 a month in income? You know,
Yeah, that's a very good point. And not only the cultural differences have a role, but also the investments that people make in each country are different, right? So in Brazil, where I'm from, interest rates are 14, 15% a year, and everyone puts their money in bonds and fixed income instead of in the stock market, right? So the kind of advice that you give to people in a certain market is going to vary a lot, depending on, what access to products they have, how the economy is being run, and the cultural aspects that you mentioned, right? So I think that's kind of the unlock that AI provides. I think AI unlocks personalization at scale, right? You can provide very tailored advice to, to all sorts of different people at scale, and that was previously not possible.
it's exciting to see where this will go. And with AI, it seems like your vision is really going to be able to come to light, especially as it continues to grow and improve and become more and more human in a lot of ways.
Yeah, exactly, exactly. And essentially, we're trying to provide a service that was a lot of people don't actually know from our generation what it feels like talking to an advisor. We're going to be the first experience for a lot of them, and we want to create a good first impression.
Wait, Um, if you guys would like to check out Astor, I will put the link in the show notes below. Bruno, I want to say thank you so much for hopping on. Hopefully, everyone who listened here became a little financially wiser, and hopefully, you guys will become a lot more financially wiser. I can't say my V's and W's. That's a fun fact about me. Hopefully, everyone here can become a little more financially wiser by signing up with Astor and hopefully making better financial decisions. Still, though, if my parlay hits this weekend, drinks on me. So, Bruno, thank you so much for hopping on and excited to see where you go in the next couple of years.
Awesome. Thank you, Nikita. It was a pleasure. See you all.
Yep.